Underneath the veneer of modern life, a disquiet stirs, a sense that something essential is missing, a hollowness that echoes in the quiet moments. We chase fleeting pleasures, build empires of achievement, yet find ourselves still yearning for something more profound. Have you felt it? That subtle ache of incompletion, the sense of being adrift in a sea of endless possibilities, yet unable to chart a course that truly resonates with your soul. This isn't a failure of ambition, nor a lack of opportunity. It is a deeper, more fundamental crisis, a forgetting of the primal force that animates us, the wellspring of inner strength that lies dormant within. We have been taught to tame our desires, to conform to expectations, to seek validation from external sources, and in doing so, we have severed ourselves from the very source of our power. Friedrich Nietzsche called it the will to power, not a crude lust for dominance, as it is so often misunderstood, but the inherent drive within each of us to grow, to overcome, to create, to become more fully ourselves. It is the engine of our becoming, the force that propels us toward self-mastery and unshakable inner strength. But how do we reclaim it in a world that seems designed to suppress it? How do we cultivate this vital force in the face of relentless pressure, constant distraction, and pervasive disillusionment? These are the questions we will grapple with, the enigmas we will seek to unravel as we embark on this journey together. Nietzsche's era, much like our own, was marked by a profound sense of upheaval. The old certainties were crumbling, traditional values were losing their grip, and a tide of nihilism threatened to engulf the human spirit. He saw the decline of God, the erosion of objective truth, and the rise of a society increasingly fixated on comfort and conformity. Does this sound familiar? The echoes of his time reverberate through our own, perhaps even more intensely. We too are confronted with a world seemingly devoid of inherent meaning, a world where chaos reigns and the pressure to conform is relentless. But within this apparent void lies an opportunity to forge our own values, to cultivate our own inner strength, to become the authors of our own lives. But how? Where do we begin? The answer, I believe, lies in understanding the true nature of the will to power and learning how to harness its transformative potential. Carl Jung, another profound explorer of the human psyche, offered a complementary perspective. He spoke of the shadow, the darker aspects of our nature that we often try to suppress or deny. These hidden impulses, these unacknowledged desires, can become a source of immense power if we learn to integrate them consciously. True strength, Jung argued, comes not from denying our darkness, but from embracing it, from understanding its roots, and from channeling its energy in a constructive way. What parts of yourself have you been taught to hide? What aspects of your being have you deemed unacceptable? Perhaps it is time to re-evaluate these judgments, to delve into the depths of your shadow, and to reclaim the power that lies dormant within. The first secret to cultivating unshakable inner strength lies in a concept that is both profoundly simple and radically challenging: Amor Fati, love of fate. But what does this truly mean in the context of modern life, where we are constantly bombarded with messages of self-improvement, optimization, and the pursuit of happiness? We live in a culture that is terrified of suffering. We are taught to avoid pain at all costs, to seek comfort and security above all else. We medicate our anxieties, distract ourselves from our sorrows, and build walls around our hearts to protect ourselves from vulnerability. But in doing so, we become brittle, fragile, and ultimately weak, for it is in the crucible of suffering that true strength is forged. It is through confronting our demons, embracing our wounds, and transforming our pain into purpose that we become more fully ourselves. Amor Fati is often misunderstood as a passive acceptance of fate, a kind of fatalistic resignation to whatever life throws our way. But this is a distortion of Nietzsche's profound insight. Amor Fati is not about passively accepting what happens to us, but about actively embracing it, about re-evaluating our experiences, and about finding meaning and purpose, even in the midst of suffering. It is about saying yes to life in all its messy, imperfect, and often painful glory. The paradoxical truth is that true strength is not found in avoiding suffering, but in confronting and transforming it. It is in the willingness to face our fears, to embrace our vulnerabilities, and to learn from our mistakes that we become resilient, adaptable, and ultimately unshakable. How can you shift your perspective from fearing suffering to seeing it as an opportunity for growth? To truly grasp the power of Amor Fati, consider Nietzsche's thought experiment, the eternal recurrence. Imagine that you are condemned to relive your life exactly as it is for all eternity. Every joy, every sorrow, every triumph, every failure, repeated endlessly. Would you curse this fate, or would you embrace it? If the thought fills you with dread, it is a sign that there are aspects of your life that you need to re-evaluate. Areas where you are not living in alignment with your true self. Nietzsche famously said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." But this is more than just a cliche. It is a profound statement about the nature of human resilience. It is not merely the act of surviving that makes us stronger, but the active integration of the experience, the willingness to learn from our pain, and the commitment to transforming our suffering into wisdom. What painful experiences have you avoided integrating into your life story? What lessons might they hold if you dared to look closer? The second secret to cultivating unshakable inner strength lies in a radical act of self-discovery, the revaluation of values. In modern life, we are constantly bombarded with messages about what we should believe, how we should behave, and what we should value. We unconsciously internalize societal expectations, religious doctrines, and cultural norms, often without questioning their validity or their impact on our own lives. This silent wound, this unexamined acceptance of external values, can lead to a fractured sense of self and a profound lack of authentic purpose. We find ourselves living lives that are not truly our own, pursuing goals that do not resonate with our deepest desires, and conforming to expectations that stifle our creativity and limit our potential. Have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? Like you were playing a role in a drama that you didn't write? The distortion lies in the myth that moral values are objective and universal, rather than subjective interpretations shaped by power dynamics and personal experiences. We are taught that there is a right and a wrong, a good and an evil, and that our task is to align ourselves with the former and avoid the latter. But Nietzsche challenged this notion, arguing that moral values are not fixed or absolute, but rather perspectives that can be re-evaluated to align with our own unique will to power. The shattered expectation is the realization that good and evil are not fixed concepts, but rather fluid and contingent judgments that are often used to control and manipulate individuals. What if the values you've always held dear are actually hindering your growth and preventing you from realizing your full potential? To begin the process of revaluation, Nietzsche proposed a technique he called moral genealogy. This involves tracing the origins of your core values, asking yourself where they came from, who benefits from you holding them, and whether they are truly serving your growth and well-being. Are your values truly your own, or are they simply echoes of your upbringing, your culture, or your social circle? Nietzsche used the metaphor of slave morality versus master morality to illustrate the psychological roots of resentment, guilt, and self-denial. Slave morality, he argued, is a system of values that arises from the resentment of the weak towards the strong, a way of justifying their own powerlessness by condemning the virtues of the powerful. Master morality, on the other hand, is a system of values that affirms life, celebrates strength, and embraces creativity. Which of these moralities do you see reflected in your own values? How can you transcend the limitations of slave morality to create your own ethical framework, one that is aligned with your own unique will to power? The third secret to cultivating unshakable inner strength lies in embracing the power of perspectivism. In modern life, we are often presented infected with the illusion of objective truth, the idea that there is one right way to see the world, one correct interpretation of reality. This illusion can lead to intellectual dogmatism, a rigid adherence to fixed beliefs that hinders critical thinking and self-discovery. This silent wound, this unexamined acceptance of objective truth, can limit our understanding of the world and prevent us from seeing things from different perspectives. We become trapped in our own echo chambers, surrounded by people who share our beliefs, and we lose the ability to engage in meaningful dialogue with those who hold different views. Have you ever found yourself dismissing an idea simply because it didn't align with your existing beliefs? The distortion lies in the belief that there is one right way to see the world, leading to judgment, intolerance, and a limited understanding of reality. We tend to assume that our own perspective is the correct one, and that anyone who disagrees with us is either ignorant, misguided, or malicious. But Nietzsche challenged this assumption, arguing that all knowledge is interpretation, shaped by individual perspectives, biases, and experiences. This shattered expectation is the recognition that there is no objective truth, no single definitive way to understand the world. Instead, there are multiple perspectives, each offering a unique and valuable insight into reality. This can be a liberating realization, freeing us from the constraints of dogmatism and opening us up to new possibilities. How would your life change if you embraced the idea that your perspective is just one of many? To cultivate the skill of perspectivism, practice the multiple perspectives exercise. When faced with a complex situation or disagreement, actively seek out and consider at least 3 alternative perspectives. Try to understand the other person's point of view, even if you don't agree with it. Practice empathy and intellectual humility, recognizing that your own perspective is limited and that you can always learn something from others. Nietzsche used the analogy of the world as a text to illustrate the power of interpretation. He argued that meaning is not inherent in the world, but rather created through our interpretation. Just as a text can be interpreted in many different ways, so too can the world be understood from multiple perspectives. This empowers you to rewrite your own narrative, to create your own meaning, and to shape your own reality. What stories are you telling yourself about the world? How can you rewrite those stories to create a more empowering and fulfilling life? The fourth secret to cultivating unshakable inner strength addresses a fatal flaw that often undermines even the most dedicated seekers of wisdom. Intellectual understanding alone breeds powerlessness. It's easy to become enamored with the elegance and depth of Nietzschean concepts, to spend hours reading and analyzing his works to develop a sophisticated understanding of his philosophy. But if this intellectual pursuit is not accompanied by practical application and emotional integration, it can lead to a sense of paralysis and detachment from reality. The mental factor at play here is over-intellectualizing without embodiment. We can grasp the concepts of Amor Fati, revaluation of values, and perspectivism on an intellectual level, but if we don't translate these ideas into concrete actions and integrate them into our daily lives, they remain abstract theories, disconnected from our lived experience. Have you ever felt like you understood something intellectually but couldn't seem to put it into practice? The emotional factor is the fear of embracing the will to power due to perceived egoism or prepotentia. We may worry that asserting our own desires, pursuing our own goals, and challenging conventional norms will make us appear selfish, arrogant, or inconsiderate. This fear can hinder authentic self-expression and personal growth, preventing us from fully realizing our potential. Are you afraid of being seen as too powerful, too ambitious, or too unconventional? The existential factor is a crisis of meaning stemming from the rejection of traditional values without a clear alternative. As we deconstruct the old certainties and question the foundations of morality, we may find ourselves adrift in a sea of nihilism, lacking a sense of purpose or direction. This can lead to a lack of motivation, a feeling feeling of emptiness and a sense that life is meaningless. What happens when the foundations of your world crumble? To overcome this fatal flaw, we need to move beyond intellectual understanding and embrace a more holistic approach that integrates thought, emotion, and action. Nietzsche offered a three-step technique for doing just that. First, identify a limiting belief or behavior that is holding you back. Second, deconstruct its origins and underlying assumptions, questioning its validity and its impact on your life. Third, construct a new, empowering belief or behavior that is aligned with your will to power. The seeker of profound self-understanding, the aspiring self-master, the intellectually independent individual, the one critical of societal norms, the individual desiring actionable insights for resilience and authentic power must understand the reason for the no after attempting to apply. Nietzsche's philosophy without emotional integration. It is not enough to simply understand the concepts. We must embody them, live them, and integrate them into the very fabric of our being. The final secret to cultivating unshakable inner strength involves deconstructing the myth of the Übermensch, or overman, and understanding its true meaning as the path to authentic self-mastery. The concept of the Übermensch is perhaps the most misunderstood and distorted aspect of Nietzsche's philosophy. Society has often presented it as a figure of arrogance, dominance, and disregard for others, a kind of Nietzschean Superman who's above morality and driven solely by his own ego. This distorted image has created a significant mental barrier, leading many to misinterpret self-overcoming as a rejection of humanity rather than an elevation of human potential. We may fear that striving to become an Übermensch means becoming cold, ruthless, and detached from our fellow human beings, but this is a fundamental misunderstanding of Nietzsche's vision. Are you afraid that striving for self-mastery will make you a worse person? The ethical imperative is to reconcile the will to power with ethical responsibility, avoiding the pitfalls of egoism and manipulation. Nietzsche was not advocating for a world of unchecked power and ruthless competition. On the contrary, he believed that true strength lies in self-mastery, in the ability to control one's own impulses, and in the willingness to use one's power for the benefit of others. How can you use your power to create a more just and compassionate world? The Übermensch is not a fixed endpoint, but rather a metaphor for continual self-improvement. It is about embracing vulnerability, seeking knowledge, and striving for excellence in all aspects of life. It is about pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones, challenging our limitations, and constantly evolving into a more complete and authentic version of ourselves. What small steps can you take today to move closer to your ideal self? Nietzsche's vision of the Übermensch is a being that transcends conventional morality, creates their own values, and embraces the totality of existence. It is a being that is not afraid to question everything, to challenge the status quo, and to forge their own path in the world. It is a being that is both powerful and compassionate, both strong and vulnerable, both individualistic and connected to something larger than themselves. The Übermensch is not a superhuman, but rather a fully realized human being, someone who has embraced their will to power and transformed themselves into a work of art. Can you envision yourself as a work of art, constantly evolving and striving for greater self-expression? We've journeyed through the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, unveiling secrets to cultivate unshakable inner strength in the modern world. We've explored Amor Fati, the radical embrace of fate, turning suffering into an unlikely ally. We've dissected the revaluation of values, daring to question the very foundations of our moral compass, forging an authentic ethical framework. And we've embraced perspectivism, the art of seeing the world through multiple lenses, shattering the illusion of objective truth. These three secrets, Amor Fati, revaluation of values, and perspectivism, are not isolated concepts, but interconnected threads in a tapestry of self-mastery. They are not a destination to be reached, but a continuous process of self-overcoming and value creation. action. The path to inner strength is not a straight line, but a winding road filled with challenges, setbacks, and unexpected detours. But it is in navigating these obstacles that we truly grow, that we truly become more fully ourselves. The challenge now lies in actively applying these principles in your daily life, transforming adversity into opportunity, questioning your assumptions, and forging your own path to meaning and purpose. It's easy to intellectualize these concepts, to nod along in agreement, but the true test lies in putting them into practice. Can you embrace the challenges that life throws your way with Amor Fati? Can you question the values that you've always held dear and create your own ethical framework? Can you see the world from multiple perspectives and embrace the complexity of reality? The world needs individuals who are willing to challenge the status quo, to question the old certainties, and to create their own values. Individuals who are not afraid to embrace their will to power and to use their strength for the benefit of others. Individuals who are committed to self-mastery and to living a life of meaning and purpose. So I leave you with a final thought, a call to action, a challenge from Nietzsche himself. Become who you are. Embrace your individuality, reject conformity, and forge your own path to authentic self-mastery. The world is waiting for you to unleash your potential, to create your own values, and to become the unique and extraordinary being that you were always meant to be. What will you create? What values will you live by? What path will you forge? The choice, ultimately, is yours.